Hello everyone and welcome to the first session of the final day of PEX Network's BPM Open House. This session, AutoNation transforms business processes for its shared services centre and franchise stores, is sponsored by PNMsoft. I'm Jason McGee-Arbert, editor of PEXNetwork.com. AutoNation operates over 310 franchises across the US and has approximately 24,500 employees. It sells 35 different manufacturer brands across 15 states and is ranked number 156 in the 2015 Fortune 500 list. Li Huang, IT Director at AutoNation, will share her BPM story with you from the cradle to the grave, including best practice tips and lessons learned from their successful business process transformation. Some of the things covered include the importance of a proof of concept when procuring for an intelligent BPMS and how BPM technology fits within a business's existing architecture. After this, we'll have a tech demo presented by PNMsoft's Global CTO, James Luxford, which will demonstrate how sequence hot operations enables customers to dynamically manage their operation on a day-to-day basis, prioritizing case and workload, reallocating resources, and reassigning work. A few housekeeping points. First, there will be time for a Q&A session at the end of today's session, and you can submit your questions at any point throughout the session using the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Secondly, presentations will be made available after the open house to attendees and accessible on the PEX Network site from next week. Before we get underway though, we're mixing things up a little bit with an interactive live poll. So the question's up on your screen. In your opinion, what is the most important aspect of a BPM project? Please click on your preferred option on your screens now and we'll tally the results. And the results are in, and I'd like to invite Lee and James to comment on the results.
And I think what we've seen on the board matches what we have experienced as well, and I would say all of them are very important. But above all, based on what we have done at AutoNation, we really would not be able to achieve what we achieved without the right cultural change management. So I think I agree with the attendees.
Yes, yeah, James Luxford here as well. I think I will agree. But, it's very important that all three are considered probably in equal measure. But that's very interesting results.
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely agree as well, just to add to that. And Lee, adding to yours as well, I mean, obviously transitioning individuals and teams to a desired future state is very, very important, particularly, you know, working nationwide across so many states. Very, very important. So let's get on with proceedings, and I'd like to hand over to Lee to start your presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Li Huang, Director of PMO, BPM, and QA at AutoNation. James just already did some brief introduction to AutoNation. So just to add to that, on the next slide, we are the number 156 in the 2015 Fortune 500, and we have a very large internet presence, offering our entire inventory for online searching. And earlier this year, we sold our 10 millionth vehicle to a happy customer. We also served over 4 million customers a year for service, parts, and collision. And this is a picture of our headquarters in Fort Lauderdale. So next page. How did we get on the BPM journey? We started our journey in response to a business opportunity. So we have a shared service center in Dallas, Texas that we have implemented, and it handles all the back office operations for all our.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first session of the final day of PEX Network's BPM Open House. This session, AutoNation transforms business processes for its shared services centre and franchise stores, is sponsored by PNMsoft. I'm Jason McGee-Arbert, editor of PEXNetwork.com. AutoNation operates over 310 franchises across the US and has approximately 24,500 employees. It sells 35 different manufacturer brands across 15 states and is ranked number 156 in the 2015 Fortune 500 list. Li Huang, IT Director at AutoNation, will share her BPM story with you from the cradle to the grave, including best practice tips and lessons learned from their successful business process transformation. Some of the things covered include the importance of a proof of concept when procuring for an intelligent BPMS and how BPM technology fits within a business's existing architecture. After this, we'll have a tech demo presented by PNMsoft's global CTO, James Luxford, which will demonstrate how sequence hot operations enables customers to dynamically manage their operation on a day-to-day basis, prioritizing case and workload, reallocating resources, and reassigning work. A few housekeeping points. First, there will be time for a Q&A session at the end of today's session, and you can submit your questions at any point throughout the session using the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Secondly, presentations will be made available after the open house to attendees and accessible on the PEX Network site from next week. Before we get underway though, we're mixing things up a little bit with an interactive live poll. So the question's up on your screen. In your opinion, what is the most important aspect of a BPM project? Please click on your preferred option on your screens now and we'll tally the results. And the results are in, and I'd like to invite Lee and James to comment on the results.
And I think what we've seen on the board matches what we have experienced as well, and I would say all of them are very important. But above all, based on what we have done at AutoNation, we really would not be able to achieve what we achieved without the right cultural change management. So I think I agree with the attendees.
Yes, yeah, James Luxford here as well. I think I will agree. It's very important that all three are considered probably in equal measure. That's very interesting results.
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely agree as well, just to add to that. And Lee, adding to yours as well, I mean, obviously transitioning individuals and teams to a desired future state is very, very important, particularly, you know, working nationwide across so many states. Very, very important. So let's get on with proceedings, and I'd like to hand over to Lee to start your presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Li Huang, Director of PMO, BPM, and QA at AutoNation. James just already did some brief introduction to AutoNation. So just to add to that, on the next slide, we are the number 156 in the 2015 Fortune 500, and we have a very large internet presence, offering our entire inventory for online searching. And earlier this year, we sold our 10 millionth vehicle to a happy customer. We also served over 4 million customers a year for service, parts, and collision. And this is a picture of our headquarters in Fort Lauderdale. So next page. How did we get on the BPM journey? We started our journey in response to a business opportunity. So we have a shared service center in Dallas, Texas that we have implemented, and it handles all the back office operations for all our stores, including AP, inventory, billing, flooring, CFS products, cash management, reconciliation, and schedules. The SOC over the years were able to enable AutoNation to achieve substantial cost reduction and to achieve greater control. We have done a lot of process work over the years to streamline, automate, and create a control. So we were working on a CFS project. CFS stands for Customer Financial Services. We were working on the project, and we identified more opportunities where we can reduce staff and grow customer satisfaction by building system integrations, putting in business rules, and implementing various workflows. We looked into different options to implement those opportunity enhancements. And we determined an IBPMS would be the best fit for our environment because it would not only meet the requirements of the CFS project, it would also provide us with a platform for process implementation and enhancement across all the business areas, which is something we always know that we will need. Next slide, please. So once we determine we're going to look for an IBPMS, we looked into Gartner's Magic Quadrants and identified multiple vendors based on what's on the Magic Quadrant, and also based on what we have researched and by doing a lot of interviews and research. And so we asked all the selected vendors to provide demos to us, which helped us to narrow down the selection to final 3 solutions. We then asked the final 3 to provide more detailed demonstration to representatives from all business departments and IT representatives. We then asked them to produce a proof of concept based on a process we selected, and all 3 attempted to produce a POC. We, at the end, selected the Sequence platform from PNMsoft for multiple reasons. So it has a Microsoft-centric architecture, which is a great fit for AutoNation because we also have a lot of Microsoft technologies, and from a technology standpoint, it's right there. The pricing was affordable, and it's within our budget. All the features that we were looking for, Sequence has it. It has all the functionalities, including mobile and real-time analytics. We were happy with the user interface as well. What really impressed us with Sequence and PNMsoft is the customer service we received during the POC. The team listened to everything that we have to say about our needs and wants. They asked the right questions regarding both the process and also our culture. And they produced a POC that truly showed us the value of the system and also the potential of the system. We were very confident that it will be able to deliver what we set out to do. Next page, please. So we signed the contract and we selected a first project. We wanted a process that's neither too big nor too small. We also want to make sure that process will actually make an impact to the SFC, the stores, and our customers, because we really want to make sure we have the momentum going, and something too small would not be able to, make too much an impact. So the one selected was the CFS product cancellation process. The CFS products, in case you are not familiar with, include the products like extended warranty, the tire and wheel protection, gas insurance, etc. And we receive about 10,000 cancellation requests per month from our customers. And for the most part, we had a pretty manual process for the SSC and the stores back at that time. We had some internal process analysts we hired one new internal developer and trained him up on Sequence. We also partnered with PNMsoft and its partner EDC and had the help from 2 consultants from them. So the small team developed the process within 4 months. We used agile process methodology to deliver the project, and we work really closely with our business sponsor from the SSC and also the business users from the SSC. We piloted the solution in a few stores first before rolling it out to all the stores. Next slide, please. Here is a picture of a happy customer from the SSC. He's actually our lead on the cancellation team, and we actually probably spoke to him on a daily basis when we were working on the process, and he's a very happy customer of the solution. Next slide. So the results from the project was very good. We were not only able to improve the efficiency, we were also able to achieve effectiveness of the process. Our customers were able to receive refund checks within 3 days, and it's mostly from 1 to 3 days. And in the past, it definitely takes much longer due to the manual nature of the process. And the process was more efficient to the SSC and store users because of a lot of the system integration provide them with the data they need versus they have to search for the data. They were able to just select products for cancellation based on what the system provides them. And we also provide full visibility to both the SSC and the stores throughout the process. So the stores don't have to call the SSC to find out where we stand on the cancellation. We were able to build in rules to handle exceptions faster and better, and also we are able to ensure the consistent execution of the process. Next slide, please. Following the first process, we were asked by a lot of business areas to build more processes, and we were able to build more just in the first 1.5 years. So those include the program management office process, a document distribution solution, new hire integration with the IT systems, scanner integration into the DPM, and pay plan change request process. And today we are actually building more processes. Right now we are building an electronic invoice and procurement process, data governance process, and dealer trade process. And many more are in the pipeline for us to work on this year and next year. Next slide, please. So we looked into the benefits we're able to achieve, and it's very substantial. We were able to achieve over $500,000 a year just in labor cost savings by doing, found efficiencies in the processes, removal of unnecessary steps from the processes, and removal of manual steps. The SSC was able to scale up with the growing business without adding more headcount because AutoNation continues to grow by acquisition, and the SSC was able to handle all the volume without adding more people. And the visibility into the process queues is big, and the customer satisfaction is really the #1 thing we are looking for, and we're able to help on that. From a technology standpoint, we were able to build foundational products with reusable components for rapid build of future flows. So build once, use many times. And the platform of Sequence with the pre-built functions enables faster development as well. Next slide, please. So what have we learned from our journey? We think most important of all, business IT partnership is crucial. we couldn't have done what we've done without the collaboration and support from our key state business partners, especially the head of the FSC, who were part of the team for a long time, and we get guidance and support from the business heads, and also they help to remove obstacles for the project to succeed. Secondly, we need to be ready to handle culture change management with key stakeholders and end users. Inevitably, some folks would not like the process changes. And we need to first be aware of their existence, and we usually analyze our key stakeholders and have a plan to handle the personnel and also any potential pushback, and to gain their buy-in from what we are going to do. What also helped us is by deploying the system in an agile fashion in small increments. We were able to show them the system, and we're able to gain their confidence that we're moving in the right direction. So, which leads to really our third learning is agile project delivery works with the BPM. Business is closely involved, and they are able to set priorities of what they want. And when there is a new business requirement and changing requirements, we are able to adjust quickly and deliver as the requirements evolve. And also by involving QA as part of the team from day one, we're able to ensure good quality of the end result. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Next, let me turn the control to Mr. James Luxford, Global CTO from PNMsoft.
Okay, thanks, Lee. That's very interesting, and thanks for that insight. I do have to say it's been a pleasure working with Lee over the last few months, and working with AutoNation. It's been a real success story, and I think what Lee has identified there, some of those learnings about getting key stakeholders engaged, working as a partnership with business and IT, very important. And also start small, work with the business, and make sure that you are involving those all the way through your journey. And now I'm going to show you PNMsoft sequence, just to give you a flavor for what Lee has been talking about from a technology perspective, but to also show you how the technology can support the change management aspect that Lee was talking about. So first of all, just a little bit about PNMsoft and about Sequence. So PNMsoft, we're a global software product company. We produce Sequence, an IBPMS, an Intelligent Business Process Management Suite, built on the Microsoft architecture. So it works perfectly for those companies that have a Microsoft strategy. Also perfect for cloud as well. So if you want to have your IBPMS hosted in the cloud, Sequence is an excellent choice. We have offices in Europe, in North America, in the Middle East. We have global coverage, plus a very strong network of partnerships. Lee touched on EVC, one of our North American partners, but we have many around the world. Now here on the screen you can see the term hot processes. Now many processes in organizations, you define them, they are fairly fixed. Once they're implemented, you can leave them ticking away quite nicely, possibly refining them over the months, improving those processes, using Sequence's intelligent analytics to be able to understand where your bottlenecks are. The traditional sweet spot for BPM processes. Sequence has support for what we call hot processes. So these are processes typically customer facing, core to your business, complex, not processes that are changing quickly, but the parameters feeding those processes are changing, such as what are my allocation, what teams do I have available? What resources do I have available within those teams? What priority should I be giving to cases? What order should my teams be doing the work in? And being able to change those on a real-time, daily basis. And I'm going to give you a little example of hot processing and how that can work in a moment. But hot processes and standard processes, they all fit the BPM model of being able to capture the process. Once you've captured it, working closely with the business, of course, to be able to do it, because it's the business that owns the process, being able to take that and configure it within the BPM suite. I'm going to show you how you can work with the business and then take that model and make it executable. And once it's executing, again, Lee mentioned this, it's about having visibility on the processes, whether that's through the use of real-time dashboards, intelligent analytics, to be able to understand what is going on within the operation and to be able to manage that operation down to a very low level. And then being able to look back and being able to analyze the operation, seeing what's going on, where can we help to improve the operation, whether that's on a daily basis or on a more long-term optimizing the process basis. Then the circle is complete where you can then implement those changes into the continuous improvement cycle. And Lee mentioned Agile as a methodology. At PNMsoft, we've been using our evolutionary BPM methodology for many years now. The idea here is don't try and boil the ocean in one go. Look at, where is the real pain point? Try and identify a particular pain point and fix that problem first, perhaps as your first process or your first part of a larger process. And then using evolutionary BPM, being able to refine that, add more functionality, all the while reviewing it with the stakeholders, with the business, so that when you come to deliver a process, it's exactly what they need. It's not 80% of the way there. The key there is when you deploy it, because they've had ownership as you go through the development cycle, you'll have that happy customer that Lee had a great picture of. And AutoNation are a perfect example of, at the end of the day, what's key is your customers, that's the end users, and your organization's customers, the people that you're delivering business to. Everyone's happy. Okay, so let's have a little look about what I've been referring to. So I'm just going to switch to another environment and we'll have a look at sequence in action. Now there's lots I can say about sequence, but I'm just going to keep it to 10 minutes or so. Don't want you to be bamboozled with lots of technology. I just want to give you the highlights. First of all, user interface, user experience. Again, a point that Lee mentioned. Sequence, you can configure the user environment to meet specific needs of the process, of the teams that are using it. So you can have functional portals that can be tailored exactly to the job that people are doing. People don't need to learn a complex system. You can create a very simple user interface, and that extends through to our forms. Sequence, it's all delivered through the browser, so you don't need to install anything on the client PC. It's all just the browser is all you need. And people can use the browser to start processes, as I'm doing here, to be able to interact with the processes, to action tasks. And again, you can create a very simple but very rich user interface that allows you to be able to pull information from other systems, whether that's a CRM system, an ERP system. As the end user, I don't mind where the information is coming from. It means that I don't have to go and reach out to other systems. Everything that is available to me to hand. And we can put as much information. This is all completely configurable through our UX Studio. And of course we have validation on here to make sure that the information is correct before it's submitted. And also part of what we want to show you today is about dynamic allocation of work, being able to reallocate work. Here we can see in this simple process we've now sent the task to service management for them to action. Looks simple, but there can be a lot of business logic behind the scenes determining who's going to receive what and who can do what, whether that's on a skills basis, an availability basis, whatever it may be, making sure the right person or the right team do the right job. And we also mentioned about visibility as well, being able to see the processes where they are. We can see those on dashboards, but we can also see them in a nice, in a nice graphical environment. And I mentioned earlier about being able to work with the business to be able to configure those processes. Here we are. Here we are in our App Studio where we configure our processes. What's key here is we can have a business user view in the terms that they understand, some nice simple steps in the process. They can understand how this process is built. We can use BPMN here as well if we wish to. But once the business has decided what the process needs to be, they can even configure this themselves. A business analyst can configure this process. We can then delve down behind each of these boxes, we call them containers, we can have more complex processes. This allows us to be able to create very rich, very functional processes, but up at a high level, it means the business user doesn't need to worry about SLA reminders, integration points, and so on. If we make any changes to the lower level, the business user still sees the process as they understand it. And it's this view that we can present progress to the users. And we have very rich dashboarding capabilities, from being able to see lists of processes to charts and so on. But I'm now going to switch over to our hot operation dashboard. So I touched on that previously. Hot operations, it's about those hot processes that on a daily basis you need to flex the operation. Whether that's who's being allocated cases, whether it's reallocating cases because they're going to be late, prioritizing cases that are looking like they're going to be late so that they don't become late. So here we are in our hot operations portal, and you can see a number of tasks that I can undertake. But underpinning all this is our hot operations dashboard, where I have an overview of my operation. Now in this operation today, we currently have 264 cases that we are working through. We have 3 delivery centers, one in North America, one in Europe, and an offshore in India. We can see how we can utilize those. But at the moment we have had 49 cases come in, and I can see all of those cases if I want to in my new cases page. We can see those 49 cases. We can see when they have come in. We can see who the customer is. We can see what the type of the case is. We've got a mixture of mainly service requests in here, but lots of other types. The case profile. This is a combination of the customer and a number of other parameters that's effectively profiling the case, so we know what SLA we want to work to, what priority we want to give it, and who we want to assign the case to. So here we can see this is the case team that has been assigned or allocated to this particular case. And here we have some priorities. Of course, we're ordering these in order of priority. Now you'll notice that we have a few here where we haven't assigned it to a case team. That's because our business rules, they can get 95% of the way, but there may be the odd exception where we want a person to decide who's going to do this particular, allocate this particular case. So let's have a look at how we can do that. We can see that here's our 5 cases that we have here. And if we scroll down, we can see through the use of predictive BPM, we can see we're expecting to get 76 cases done today. And we're currently not expecting any of our cases that are due today to be late. Our team is utilized on average about 87%. Our offshore team is almost 100% utilized, but we do have some capacity in our other teams. So let's have a look at allocating those resources. So here I can see the list of cases that haven't already been allocated. I can further filter these if I want to, but I've only got 5 here, so it's very easy to be able to see which ones I want to. I can allocate these on a per case basis if I want to, deciding who I want to. But quite often there will be a large number here. So I can select a number, or perhaps even all of them as I am in this case, and I can see, okay, my offshore team, I'm happy that I have a little bit of capacity, so I'm going to assign all of those cases to my offshore team. Now I can see that I've actually overstretched my offshore team, but let's have a look to see what that means. So I now have all my cases are allocated to someone, but 3 of those cases, it may not be the case I've just allocated, but there are 3 cases due today that are possibly going to be late. And I can see the breakdown here of those. So I may then want to come in and have a look at those late cases and decide what I'm going to do with them. These are the 3 that are due today, but are looking like they're going to be late. I've got 2 service request tasks here, cases, and I know my EMEA team can easily handle those. So let me reallocate those cases to that team. My offshore team is still fully loaded, but I don't want my EMEA team to do a contract renewal. That's still held with my offshore team. They're the experts in that particular task. So here I've got 1 more that I need to do. It's still going to be late, so I'm going to reprioritize that. It's currently of a low priority. I want to push it up the list so that it does get done today. So I'm going to make that a high priority case, which that now means I've got no late cases, and I'm now good to go. I can see how my operation is performing. I didn't show, but my cost per case has slightly increased because I'm now using my EMEA team, which is more expensive than my offshore team, but I'm happy to accept that slightly increased cost per case because it means that all of my cases are actioned on time, and that means I have happy customers. It's all about customer satisfaction. Of course, we may get to the point where I need to compromise. That's just too expensive, and in that case I may decide that I'm happy for some to perhaps be slightly late. But that's the choice that I can make. So that's just a very quick look at sequence at our hot operations. There's lots more that I can say, but just to summarize, Sequence, it's an iBPMS suite built on Microsoft technologies. You can automate any process, any business process, horizontal, vertical. As Lee mentioned, lots of different processes can be implemented with it. But one of its real sweet spots is around hot processes, where you have lots of cases. There can be different types of cases, but you want to manage that operation. You want to be able to bring new resources in, change resources, change allocation, change the priority. You want your operations manager to be able to do that on the fly. You don't want to have to go and change the process itself. The process stays the same. What you're flexing, we call it hot change 3.0, is all of the factors that's determining who's doing it and in what order they're doing it. Okay, so that's enough from me. If you do have any questions, Jason mentioned you can submit them through the webinar panel. Otherwise, I should now pass back to Jason, who will take a look at some of the questions. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you very much for that, James, and also Lee for sharing your BPM success story, and James for delving a little bit deeper into the benefits of the Sequence Hot Operations platform. Really interesting to see the kind of cost per case and the operation performance and utilization of the tools. Let's kick things off with some questions. If you do have any, please do submit them now. Got one here for you, Lee, and we'll get you back on the line. What advice would you give to someone new looking into BPM?
I would say, in addition to the normal things people usually do when they look for a new solution, I think one good advice I would give is to ask for a proof of concept, because for us, that's really what gives us the confidence, because by doing the POC, you will not only see how the solution might work on using your process, and also you'll be able to observe the willingness to cooperate from both the implementation partners and the vendor, which to us was really what sealed the deal for us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that response there, Lee. One for you, James, bringing you back on the line. Looking very much about the platform itself, was the developed solution BPMN 2.0 compliant?
Yes, it is. Yes, we have what we believe is a very nice solution for that. You can use your BPMN 2.0 models at the high level, but because we're using them as containers, each of the BPMN shapes is a container. That means that you can then implement the process behind each of those containers, do exactly what you need it to do, because BPMN is not executable. You have to add a little bit more. So we can do that, but behind the scenes. It means that the business users that have defined the model as BPMN 2.0 can stay at that level. The process designers can then add the execution information behind the scenes. So yes, that's fully supported.
Okay, that's perfect. And then sticking with you, James, actually as well, we've got another question. We've got another question here from Ricardo, who asks: is there an available interface with mobile applications such as Android or iOS in order to allocate orders in real time?
Okay, yes, so mobile is a very interesting subject in terms of BPM. What PNMsoft provides with Sequence is an interface, a web service interface for mobile applications to allow you to be able to create your own native apps. Out of the box, and Lee touched on this, we provide an HTML5 portal that allows you on every device to be able to start processes, action tasks, and so on. If you want native apps for your Android or for your iOS users, then our interface allows you to be able to create those. We don't provide those out of the box because typically they are scenario based. You need them to be specific and fine-tuned to the particular scenario that you are looking to mobilize. But we have all of the interfaces that makes that very easy for you to be able to create those. Okay.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thanks very much for that, James. Lee, moving back to you. talking about that change management that you kind of highlighted as such an important integral thing to kind of get really tackled when implementing BPM. How did you handle internal politics and resistance to change in implementing the BPM project?
Good question. So what I usually do before I get started on a project, you look into what's the purpose of doing that project, right? What's the issue you have, and then you look into all the stakeholders into the process. So who is the process owner? Who are the current workers on the process? And who are the customers of the process? Who is the business sponsor of the process? And you don't have to do it really just in writing, but you have to look into each one of them and figure out what's their interest, what they have to gain and lose by doing the new process work. And if there's not enough support, then I wouldn't say that's a good candidate for your process work. So you need to make sure there is the support and there is a true business value from doing the process. And then you have to, for the ones that's against the process but who is critical for the success of the project, you have to make sure you are able to get them on board by, one, to clear any misunderstanding they may have for what you're trying to do, because there's got to be something that is for the good of the company. So you need to be able to really demonstrate the business case and the value of what you're trying to do. And you have to have full support from your business sponsor and process owner. And once you have that, in terms of implementation, what we have been doing is really engage all the stakeholders constantly. We probably would over-communicate rather than under-communicate. So we would show them our progress. We would get their feedback, make them part of the team who actually helped to design the process. And by showing them on a biweekly basis or even more frequently what the system looks like and how it works, it usually will make them feel more comfortable. And also listen to everything they have to say about any potential issue and really figure out a way to resolve them. Will make them feel like their opinions are valued and they're part of the team. So I think that's on the high level what we have been doing to overcome any potential resistance throughout the process. And every project is different, so you have to make that part of your process for each new project.
That's perfectly. Thank you very much for covering the resistance part. We've got a question here from Edgar, if I could keep you on the line, Lee. Could you please, he asked if you could break down the ROI of the actual tool implementation for this project. I know that you referred to it earlier in your presentation with 500K per year efficiencies, but are there any other sort of kind of stats that you could detail to us?
Sure. So the ROI analysis are usually done at the very beginning of our project. We actually would work on a business case, which includes the ROI before we would get full approval of funding for each project. So usually for the ROI, we look into are there any headcount reduction? Is there any headcount reduction possible? Which in case of the SSC, we have staff that was staffed to handle all 300 dealerships, and usually we are able to identify some efficiency or by automate what was done manually, and which results in headcount reduction. And in some cases, we also look into labor cost saving in terms of we have, for example, corporate procurement working on this process, which takes, 8 hours on a daily basis across the team to perform certain tasks. And by, putting in a system, they would not need to perform those tasks, which allows them to work on, more value-added activities. We also look into, for example, by looking into the errors that exist in current process. So if because of a manual process or an ineffective process we have today, we have lots of errors, we are able to obtain reports on the historical trends and analyze the numbers that attribute to those inefficiencies. And then we calculate how many percentage of those errors will be able to be eliminated by doing this new process. And the errors we are able to translate into a dollar that the company will be able to save, and that also goes into the ROI. And we look into savings of hardware, software, or for example shipping that was traditionally a pretty big expense for some of our process, and we look into eliminate having to pay for those shipping expense by basically getting rid of the shipping. And so the list goes on. So it's really by process, and it's critical that we identify them at the beginning of the process. So when we finish the project, we then measure to make sure we are able to deliver what we are set out to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lee. Very comprehensive. James, if I can bring you back on the line, we've got a sort of security-focused question here. What are some of the typical issues that businesses can encounter when implementing a BPM solution on the cloud? This is a question from Anthony Horner, and he kind of asks with respect to connecting to apps within DMZ, so there's a militarized zone and the physical logical subnetworks.
Yep. We generally use Microsoft Azure as a cloud offering, and part of that is some very powerful VPN tunneling capabilities that allows us to be able to set up with the customer a VPN tunnel either into their DMZ or in fact directly into their network to be able to integrate with their back-end systems. You've of course got to be mindful of performance, but from a security point of view, generally security concerns are more conceived problems rather than actual problems, and we're finding more and more customers are feeling comfortable to trust Microsoft to provide that VPN tunnel from our cloud offering into their corporate networks.
That's perfect. Great stuff. Lee, another question for you. Looking internally at AutoNation, who is the most important team member, or who was the most important team member within the BPM project? Is it the process owner, process designer, or are there any other individuals that really came to light and prominence?
Well, I think all team members are important. Both the process owner and the process designer, I would say, are one of the most important team members. We have to have close collaboration between business and IT. So the process owner and process designer who represents business and IT needs to be one team, needs to, be able to fully communicate and analyze the process together. So, and that's part of the key success factors to, our success.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lee. James, another question for you here. Is there any way to go deeper, further into detail, in order to get validation from end customers, such as barcode reading and pictures or signatures?
I mean, Lee may be able to touch on that because I know that they've been looking at some of that capabilities. You're starting to touch on the Internet of Things, sort of the next big thing in terms of IT, and we can integrate with many things through our industry standard integration connectors, and as long as they are accessible through web services or through some other interface, then Sequence can utilize those. Typically, if it's a barcode scanner, that would probably be something that's either starting a process, and we can trigger a process based on a barcode being read through a scanner, or we can have a step in a process where it will only move on if the correct barcode is scanned. So if, for instance, in the process we've sent out a document with a hard document with a barcode on, we can then wait until that document then comes back until before we then carry on the process. So yeah, so we can integrate with lots of different systems. I see you mentioned some signatures as well. Assuming that's a wet signature, again, they can be scanned in. We of course can't read signatures, but we can get a human to check signatures. So they may have a signature on file, and we can bring that up and present it next to the scanned image to allow signature verification and so on. So there just about everything out there can be integrated with. It really comes down to sort of use case and using your imagination to use these other systems in the best possible way.
Perfect. Thank you very much there, James. Lee, anything to add there? I know in your presentation you said that more processes were being built today, such as electronic invoice and procurement processes. Is there anything that you can talk about with getting that further validation from end customers?
Sure. One of the things that we've done is to build a scanner integration directly into our process. So at the beginning, what we ask the customers to do, or the users to do, is to scan supporting documents from the scanner, and then they attach them into the process, which is an extra step they have to do. And then we later invested some time to build an interface directly from a scanner. So from the interface from the scanner, the multifunctional device, they can select which process ID to attach the document to. So just by press of the buttons, those documents are attached to the specific process for some specific processes on our platform.
That's perfect. Thank you very much there, Lee. If I could sort of move back into the actual implementation of BPM, we've got a question here from Rajnesh who asks, when you were in the second wave of the actual implementation, how much did you actually depend on the vendor, so obviously PNMsoft, and I suppose this is definitely a question of support here. How much kind of support and interaction was there?
So in terms of PNMsoft, in the second wave of our implementation, the only times we reach out to them is when we have a technical issue, when we have some, server side of issue that we do not have internal talent so far, we reach out to them. But that was actually pretty minimum. What what we think we need help on is really due to our really internal settings, because it's a new department and we didn't have enough internal staff in place, so we have to supplement with consultants who are the developers on the processes. But that was the really only place where we need help.
Perfect. Thank you very much there, Lee. We've also got a question here looking specifically at the actual implementation. What were the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
To be honest, the biggest challenge I have is that following the first processes, I had so many people from across different business areas asking me for help to, help figure out their process improvement opportunities and help to complete a solution. And I have, that's my biggest challenge is how can I staff up quickly to be able to deliver those solutions quickly for all of them. And I had to prioritize the request and had to, slow down in some cases for some business sponsors on their specific need just because of my lack of capacity, which, to be honest, is a good problem to have, but it's a challenge, nevertheless, that I had to, spend time to invest in the resources to be able to help all the business sponsors.
Thank you very much there, Lee. Another question here from Courtney, who asks, how much of your actual dealer management systems were custom built using PNMsoft today? Do you have a target for the future in terms of having a mix between legacy and custom?
I wouldn't say we're using PNMsoft for our dealer management system, because that's kind of a specific term that refers to some third-party partners we have in terms of DMS. What we're using PNMsoft are really how can we integrate with the DMS and other systems to make the business process better for our users. Did that answer the question?
Well, yeah, I guess it did. There's a follow-up question here as well from Courtney, who's literally just said, I'm downloading your iOS app right now, and asked whether you used PNMsoft to help develop it.
We have different applications, and we do have one application, actually a couple that we've done using PNMsoft, but those are more internal applications. So if you downloaded an application, I would say that was probably done by our internal developers for our website.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much there, Lee. James, another question for you here, bringing you back online. We've got a question here that asks, does the software have different templates for different cases and sort of industries, for example, healthcare services, education, manufacturing, and are these templates built on the actual software?
Mm-hmm. We don't provide templates as such, because what we've found is within the same industry, two customers have quite different ways of doing the same process. So what we have done is design the software to allow you to be able to create your process as quickly as possible to your exact requirements. So that's our product strategy, and to allow you to be able to create exactly what you want, rather than perhaps us providing a template which is 90, perhaps even 80% of what you want. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much there, James. And a final question, one for you, Lee. If you could do something differently in your BPM project, what would that be, and what are the reasons why that would be the case?
I may have hinted to it earlier. I wished I had invested in more internal resources early on, because as I mentioned, for the first process, I only hired one new developer to work on the project, and who was not able to handle, all the requests following the first project, and as part of the reason for, the slowdown in making all the business happy in terms of their process. So I wish if something I could have done differently, I would have, had a case to invest in more resources from both developers and analysts and architects early on.